All right, let's dive into a medical mystery that fooled doctors for almost an entire century. It's a wild detective story about a nasty tummy ache, two super stubborn doctors, and a tiny clue that was hiding in plain sight the whole time. You know how for years, if you got this burning pain in your stomach, the advice was always the same? You're too stressed out, or lay off the spicy food. But what if I told you that for most people, that advice was just completely wrong? Yeah, the real culprit was something else entirely. This quote right here, it's the key to our whole story. See, for decades, doctors thought they knew exactly what caused ulcers. They were so sure about it that they just stopped looking for any other answers. That feeling of knowing was actually the very thing that was blocking them from finding the truth. So first up, let's break down this tummy ache myth. To really get why everyone was so off base for so long, we gotta understand what an ulcer even is. I want you to picture your stomach. It's not just a soft bag that holds your food. No way. It's more like a heavy-duty blender, just churning away, filled with acid that's so strong it could dissolve metal. Seriously? Its whole job is to smash and liquefy your lunch. But that brings up a good question. If the acid is that strong, why doesn't it just dissolve your stomach too? Well, your stomach has a pretty cool secret weapon. It's got this thick, slimy layer of mucus that works just like a superhero's force field. This gooey shield makes sure that all that powerful acid stays focused on your food and stays away from the stomach wall itself. Pretty smart, huh? So, what happens when that force field gets a crack in it? You get an ulcer. And an ulcer is really just a sore, kind of like a scrape you'd get on your knee, but it's on the inside of your stomach. It's like a little pothole opens up in that mucus shield, and that lets the acid get through and start burning the stomach wall. And yeah, it hurts. A lot. For the longest time, almost a century, everyone just assumed they knew what caused these potholes. They blamed all the usual suspects. You were too stressed, you ate too many spicy tacos, maybe you smoked, or maybe it was just bad luck from your parents. It kind of made sense on the surface, but it was all just part of that illusion of knowledge. But then, on the other side of the world, a quiet, super careful observer stumbled onto a clue that was about to change everything. And here's our first hero, a doctor in Australia named Robin Warren. Now, he was a pathologist, which is a fancy word for a doctor who looks at tiny pieces of your body under a microscope to figure out what's going on. It was his job to spot the little details that everyone else missed. And one day, looking at these stomach samples, he saw something impossible. Hiding deep down in that slimy force field, right up against the stomach wall, were these tiny little corkscrew-shaped germs. Now, you have to understand, every single medical textbook said nothing could survive in the stomach's acid. It would be like finding fish living on the sun. It made no sense, but there they were. Dr. Warren knew he was onto something huge, but he needed a partner to help him solve the case. He needed a Watson for his Sherlock Holmes. And in walks Dr. Barry Marshall, a young doctor who was just full of energy and curiosity. So now you've got this perfect team, right? Dr. Warren, the careful observer who found the weird clue, and Dr. Marshall, the eager investigator who just would not let it go. Together, they became the Stomach Detectives. Their first big move was to investigate stomach samples from 100 different people, all of whom were having these awful stomach problems. They wanted to see if there was a real connection between Dr. Warren's mystery germs and all this pain. And boy, did they find one. The results were absolutely shocking. For one very specific kind of ulcer, every single patient, not 99%, 100% of them, had the mystery germ. You just can't get a result like that by accident. It was too perfect. So, case closed, right? Not even close. When they took their findings to the world's experts, people basically laughed in their faces. They said, oh, those germs are harmless, and they probably just show up after something else causes the ulcer. The experts were totally stuck inside that illusion of knowledge. So Dr. Marshall was getting pretty frustrated. He knew they were right, but how could he prove it when no one would even listen? He decided he needed to come up with proof that nobody, and I mean nobody, could ignore. And his plan was, well, it was either incredibly brave or completely insane. He decided that if he was going to prove these germs made people sick, he needed a human volunteer. And he knew just the person for the job. Himself. He was going to swallow the bacteria. On purpose. Okay, the plan was as simple as it was terrifying. Step 1, grow a big batch of the mystery germs in the lab. Step 2, mix them into this gross-looking broth. And finally, step 3, he chugged the entire thing. For a few days, nothing really happened. But then, on day 3, he started feeling bloated. By day 5, he was waking up feeling really sick. By day 8, he was actually vomiting. Finally, after 10 days, another doctor took a look inside his stomach with a tiny camera. And what did they see? His stomach was red, angry, inflamed, and it was crawling with those germs.
He'd done it. He proved it, without a shadow of a doubt. These weren't just harmless little germs hanging out. They were invaders that could take a perfectly healthy stomach and make it seriously sick. This was the slam-dunk proof he needed.
Dr. Marshall's incredibly gutsy experiment was the last piece of the puzzle they needed. With this undeniable proof, the case of the mysterious tummy ache was finally, officially closed. And the final proof really was in the cure. New studies showed that when patients took simple antibiotics, the kind you get for a sore throat, to kill the germs, their ulcers didn't just get better. They were cured, for good. But if you didn't kill the germs, the ulcers almost always came back. It really was that simple. So what was the name of this little villain that had gotten away with it for so long? Helicobacter pylori, a tiny spiral-shaped bacterium that for almost 100 years committed the perfect crime, letting stress and spicy food take all the blame. The story of Doctors Warren and Marshall, who, by the way, won the Nobel Prize for this, it's not just about ulcers. It's an amazing reminder that sometimes the biggest truths are hiding right behind the things we think we already know for sure. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What huge idea are we all totally convinced is true right now that might be completely wrong? Thanks for coming along on this investigation with us. To delve further, check out the Deep Dive podcast episode on this topic. The link is in the comments.